Hi, thank you all so much for staying. I'd like to start off today by telling you a quick story about a woman that I met recently. Her and I were out socially and we were just chit-chatting, and she ended up asking me what I did for a living. So I told her, I'm an oculofacial plastic surgeon. And she was really polite, but she was like, what? Because the world of oculoplastic surgery is really small. So there's not a lot of people out there that know what an oculoplastic surgeon is. So I explained to her that in order to become a surgeon like I am, after graduating from Geneseo, I went to 4 years of medical school. I followed that with a 1-year internship. I then did a 3-year residency in ophthalmology, and I followed that with a 2-year fellowship in oculofacial plastic surgery. And I told her that now I practice in Rochester, and in my practice, about 50% of my patients get cosmetic surgery, and the other 50% get reconstructive surgery. And as soon as I said cosmetic surgery, her eyes lit up, and she said, "That's great, you can do my boob job." And I had to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't do those surgeries." And she didn't skip a beat, and she said, "Oh, but that means you can do my tummy tuck, right?" And again, I had to tell her, "I'm sorry, I don't do those surgeries." So she paused for a minute, and she looked a little frustrated, and then she looked back at me and said, "So what do you even do then?" So I'm sorry if I'm not the right kind of cosmetic surgeon, but I am a surgeon, and I've been a surgeon for the last 9 years. And the surgeries that I do range from anything like taking out an eye that has a tumor in it, to reconstructing a face after it has trauma, to lifting eyelids, to placing a chin implant. And I really love what I do. But for the first 7 years of my career, I had a huge problem with performing cosmetic surgery because it all just seemed so superficial. So, I mean, here it was, I could take tumors out of a body or cure a disease. Was it really that important that I made someone more beautiful? So I asked my attendings at the time if they had a similar feeling about cosmetic surgery as me. And the response I got was some variant of, "Kathy, we don't do emotion. You're a surgeon. We operate. Surgeons don't get to decide what's superficial and what's not. Don't even ask. Just operate." And I guess I shouldn't have been that surprised by their response, because how many warm, fuzzy surgeons do you know? And at the time, I took their advice. I denied that I had an issue with cosmetic surgery. I tried to suppress it. I engaged with patients less because I just didn't want to get involved. But eventually, I couldn't fake it that I had a problem with cosmetic surgery. I knew I had to do emotion. And what ensued next was not very pretty, because remember, I was a surgeon. I was one of those non-warm, fuzzy people. So it was a bit of a mess. Have you guys ever seen a kid try to roller skate for the first time? That's exactly how I felt for 7 years trying to figure this out. And in the end, I'm really glad I went through the process, because what I learned has fundamentally changed the way I see myself and I interact with the world. So the first thing that I had to do in my investigation was figure out why we find what we find attractive. Nancy Etkoff's book, Survival of the Prettiest, lists a bunch of examples, and most of them are based upon evolution. For example, a small waist indicates that a woman is young and fit. Larger hips mean that she likely has a wide birth canal, so she'd have an easier time delivering a child. Since our end goal is to reproduce, the ideal woman would have an hourglass shape, a small waist and wide hips. And you know, time has gone on, and we've evolved, and we've grown over years and years and years, but our preferences haven't changed. Specifically, a woman with a waist to hip ratio of 0.7 or less is associated with an increased survival rate. And even today, if we look at Playboy magazine, the average centerfold has a waist to hip ratio of 0.6. That's way better than average. It's almost not real. Playboy is creating a fantasy. And now that you know this, it's really easy to understand why everyone is so fascinated with Kim Kardashian's backside. Because there's two ways to decrease a waist to hip ratio. The first is to make the waist smaller, the way Playboy did. The second is to make the booty bigger. And Kim took that all the way to the bank. But now, let's talk about women, because women like security. They took a man and they dressed him up in different outfits, ranging from a fast food worker all the way to a custom-made suit with a Rolex watch. And then they asked women which man is most attractive. You all know what happened. Women unanimously picked the man in the suit because his appearance signaled that he was better off financially. Okay, so now that we had some basis in why we find what we find attractive, the next thing I wanted to know was, when do we learn what beauty is? Alan Slater from Exeter University at the United Kingdom did a study where he took pictures of women and he asked adults to rate them anywhere from 1 to 5 based upon their attractiveness. He then took those pictures and he placed them in front of infants. And the infants were found to gaze consistently longer at the more attractive faces. We don't need to learn anything about beauty. We're born with it. It's an instinct. The ability to detect beauty is an instinct. And I can prove it to you right now because you all have this instinct. If you look at the kid up on the screen, he's cute, he's 10, his name is Jackson, he's got cute dark skin, cute hair. He's a really good looking kid. And let me show you a picture of him swimming. And I intentionally just paused for 1 full second. And I can guarantee that in that 1 full second, greater than 95% of you in this room noticed his ears. They're large and they stick out. And I can guarantee that you noticed this because it only takes a human 150 milliseconds to look at another face and decide whether or not it thinks it's beautiful. So this little boy, I feel I can talk about, because this little boy is actually my boyfriend's adopted son from Colombia, and his name is Jackson. And 2 years ago, I was talking to my boyfriend, and I casually asked him, "John, have you ever spoken with Jackson about his ears?" And John looked at me with a face of disgust. "What do you mean?" he said. And I told John that I thought it was really important, not that Jackson get his ears fixed, but that he knew it was an option if he ever wanted. So, begrudgingly, John did talk to Jackson privately one Saturday afternoon. And when Jackson responded saying he didn't really care about his ears, John was furious at me. How could he have ever brought up something so superficial to his son? We went back and forth on the issue, and eventually we decided we're just never going to talk about it again. That's how hard it was for us to talk about it. And we never did bring it up again, but Jackson did. About a year later, right before entering middle school for the first time, Jackson approached his father and said, "Hey, Dad, you know how you said that if I ever wanted my ears to look a little different, we could do that? I'd really like that." So we scheduled surgery, and he had it done. And on the way home, John asked Jackson, "Well, what do you think, kid?" And Jackson smiled the biggest smile I've ever seen. And he said, "Dad, I finally feel normal." That night was the first night I ever saw John cry. How could he have let his son ever think that he was anything less than normal? Was he a bad father? Why didn't he get his ears fixed sooner? And 1 year later, here he is. I'm proud to say that in the year that he's had his ears fixed, Jackson's grades have improved. He was student of the month 1 month. And his teacher personally called John to thank him for raising such a well-mannered child. At home and socially, Jackson has really come out of his shell, and he's always telling us how much he loves his ears. And I can't help but wonder if Jackson really loves his ears, or does he love for the first time in his life, his teachers and classmates don't notice his ears. They're noticing him. So let's go back to these judgmental babies. I didn't like these judgmental babies because here it is, you look at them and you think they're so cute, and actually all they're doing is sizing you up. But the thing I didn't like even more was the fact that it's not just babies that don't like to look at unattractive people. It's not just babies that don't like to look at unattractive people. The people that hire us, potential romantic partners, and schoolmates don't like to look at attractive people. And as a result, unattractive people don't get the best jobs. They don't get the best dates, and they get picked on at school. And this really bothers us. Probably some of you may be disappointed in me right now for even saying that. Because the truth is, as humans, we know that it's what's on the inside that matters. So we try our darndest to deny that we have this instinct. We say things like, well, beauty's only skin deep. And we say things like, you can't judge a book by its cover. Or, you know what, looks don't matter to me. I can almost guarantee that a few of you in this audience, just a few minutes ago, lied to yourself when I pointed out Jackson's ears. You sat there and thought, what? I didn't notice the ears. Did you notice the ears? I didn't see any ears up there. I know you did. The ability to detect beauty is innate. It's not something that's learned. And we have been on this planet for more than 200,000 years. These instincts aren't going anywhere. We need to accept that they exist. Author and researcher Brené Brown has really been influential in helping me understand shame. In her book, Daring Greatly, she says that the 3 most shame-inducing topics for women are weight, youth, and beauty. And I would actually make the argument that I think they should all be just categorized under beauty, because being thin is beautiful. Being young is beautiful. And I really hope I don't offend her right now, but I actually disagree with her. I don't think that beauty is shame-inducing. We love beauty. We look for it everywhere we go. If you think of how many magazines are printed every month, and most of them have an extraordinarily beautiful human being on them, we love beauty. It's not shame-inducing. But what is shame-inducing is lack of beauty, the unbeauty. What I like to think of as the beast. Now, you may say, well, Jackson's ears are a lot more severe than the cosmetic patients that I see coming in with a problem. Take this dentist, for example. When I met him, he wasn't a patient of mine, and we were out socially, and we were just talking, and he said, you know what drives me crazy? Is that more and more of my patients keep asking me, why are you so tired? And the thing is, I'm not even tired. He says he usually gets 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night. He's like, I can't figure out why they think I'm so tired. So I tried to lie to him and say, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. You look fine. And he said, no, it does matter. Because do you want a root canal from a tired dentist? So he had a point. So I eventually just told him the truth. I said, your eyelids sit way too low on your eyeballs, and you should have them lifted if you want people to not think you're tired anymore. I didn't say it that mean, but I did say it. And the next week, I surgically lifted his eyelids by 2 millimeters. And you can see his after on the right. And I can tell you that he's thrilled with the result, because not one single patient has asked him since his surgery if he's tired. It doesn't matter at all that he maybe looks a little bit more beautiful. He's just happy that his patients are back to seeing their dentist, not their tired dentist. Similarly, if we look at this young female that came to see me, now she's beautiful to begin with. No one can take that from her. But the mole underneath her left nostril drove her crazy. I personally liked it. It had like a Cindy Crawford vibe to me. But it drove her crazy, and she wanted it gone. It was her beast. So I removed it. And you can see her after picture on the right. Now, did I really make this girl any more beautiful? Maybe a smidge by technical standards, but most people would say not really. She was beautiful to begin with, and she's beautiful after. But it didn't matter, because to her, the world only saw her mole. And by having it removed, the world could finally see her. When patients come to see me, they've already identified a flaw that's causing them shame. And they believe that this flaw is interfering with their ability to relate to the world. It's ironic, right, that we fix the outside to let the inside be seen. But that's what we do. Now, I'm certainly not saying that we should all have cosmetic surgery. If you've got shame from having something that's unbeautiful, go to Dr. Whipple, she'll cut it right out for you. I'm definitely not saying that. But what I am saying is that we need to accept and understand why we find what we find beautiful. It's an instinct, and there's no way to deny it away. And once you come to terms and accept it, doing that really makes acknowledging our flaws a lot easier, because it takes the power away from the flaw. It makes it just a physical attribute rather than a dark, dirty secret that you have a problem with. So I know now that getting cosmetic surgery is not superficial, and I know that performing cosmetic surgery is not superficial. And I actually think we all need to do a little bit more emotion. Because when someone has surgery for cosmetic reasons, they're not even doing it to make themselves more beautiful. Essentially, they're doing it to make themselves feel more beautiful. And that feeling is what allows them to interact differently with the world around them. Thank you.